This podcast is sponsored by Hercules Strong Guard Tires. Visit HerculesTiresCommercial.com to learn more.
Now it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Pilot Flying J Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley. As we move into a Friday, it's the bonus show, kids. No real bombshells, so I don't know if we're going to have a bombshell Friday or not, but
no.
Hold on to your fireworks.
No, it's going to be a ponder Friday. We're going to ponder things.
We're pondering?
We're going to ponder.
Okay, we'll ponder.
Instead of grappling like Obama did, we're going to ponder.
I come from a long line of ponderers, so I've been known to ponder every once in a while.
How about ponder and pontificate Friday? We will ponder and then we will pontificate.
Not on my lawn, you don't.
You know, after I said it the second time, I thought,
yeah,
somebody may just hear the "icate" at the end. They go, what are they talking about on the
air?
No. Sorry, but we're just a little bit not frazzled here, but just we're trying to go through the Fox News poll from yesterday because the headline and Eric just printed out the entire poll for me, so we're scrambling
the actual poll.
The actual poll, and it was the headline: majority of Americans want to say in their kids' education. And we just sat there and looked at each other and went,
but not all?
Not all? What?
Most. But not all parents want to say so in their child's education. All right, man. Way to parent.
And so I actually went to the question, and again, in the system that we have, that we live under, where parents vote for state legislators. Right? They vote for state legislators. They vote for the Board of Education. Technically, if they were paying attention all the time and all the parents were concerned, they actually do have a say in, and they have the ability to have a say in what their kids' education is like. As we know, though, what is it? For Board of Educations, what is it probably? Less than 10% of registered voters vote for those local elections? So
I don't know where the numbers are, but it's very low.
It's always low. I know I'm throwing out that figure. It's nowhere near, for example, a regular political election. It just isn't. So lots of times people say, well, we're not represented. These people don't represent what we think. Well, that's because the majority of you didn't vote.
In fact, in those local elections for like school board, the people of Illinois only vote twice. Turnout's very low.
Well, here it is. The question was asked this way: do you believe parents should or should not be telling schools what to teach? Now, it all depends how you view that. Should each individual parent be able to go and say, you teach my kid this, you teach my kid that?
Yeah, like some kind of jukebox, like, hey, wait, no, I want to hear you say this. Yeah, you got to be careful how you phrase
it. Exactly. So when you say, but how we all take it is, in the general broad structure, should we be teaching, for example, that 1 and 1 is 7? So those, the big questions are something that the parents look and say, well, what are, what we believe in general, the umbrella of what we believe should be taught. And that's what's not happening. When you teach critical race theory, you're teaching a racist philosophy. And so I have to look at that question as asked in that manner under in the context of where we are right now in this nation with many school districts wanting to teach a racist philosophy.
Right.
And so, do you believe parents should or should not be telling schools what to teach? Should, these are likely voters, 50%, should not, 40%, don't know. That actually bothers us more than the yes or the no.
Well, and the fourth option was, I have kids. So, I mean, it's really interesting because I think the breakdown is about where we are as a nation. But the problem is in the methodology and how they phrase the question. Telling schools, because that sounds aggressive, as if the parents would be walking in every morning going, hey, don't teach that, teach that.
Right, exactly.
We're not talking about, that's not what you're trying to gauge. You're trying to gauge whether or not parents should have any influence and should have a say-so,
of course,
as to what they're being taught.
And we all know, of course they do. But if it's taken in the context of, because everybody knows that's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's asked that way. It's asked where you can imply that if you're looking for an excuse to justify school boards and the state legislature ignoring the parents completely, but overall, we all know what the context is. Anybody who, well, not the 10% didn't. They said, we don't know. Right. So they have no clue as to what's going on. But I'm not surprised by this because, remember, I think it's very important to understand. And this is something, by the way, we've been talking about this for a decade, and never once has anybody disputed this with us. Have they? When we say, well, I got to tell you what I'm going to say first before I ask you to respond.
I got to know before I vote.
That it is because Democrats are the party of identity politics, which means they judge people by groups. Officially, that's their policy. They judge people in groups, not as individuals. When you do that, when you stereotype people, that leads directly to racism. When you, and the vast majority of Democrats approve of Biden, when you say things that are absolute lies in order to cause racial division and racial hatred, that is what hate groups do. Mm-hmm. When we are asked the question, because the question was asked back in 2020, is the United States systemically racist? We said, no, the people are not. The police departments are not. The Democratic Party is where you find systemic racism. And it all goes right back to it. And the thing is, every Democrat knows right now, we're not throwing over-the-top hyperbole at you. It's simply the fact Democrats are the ones that embrace identity politics. As we know, what was she referred to? What was Stacey Abrams referred to the other day?
Permanent and forever governor?
No, it was something else. But it was just as funny. Stacey Abrams said, identity politics works for us. Yeah. She was honest, judging people not as individuals, not as Martin Luther King would want you to for our society to be. She believed, and that's judging everybody as an individual. She judges everybody by what particular group they're in. Skin color determines what type of person you should be and how you should think. Mm-hmm. We know that this has been addressed in the Democratic Party before. We know that Tim Ryan, when he ran against Nancy Pelosi a few years back for Speaker of the House, that's what he brought up. We need to stop being the party of identity politics. They have embraced it more than ever before.
Right.
Everything to them. They don't judge anybody by an individual. Everybody is judged by the particular group that you are in. And so I'm not surprised by this. Because if you put it in the context of teaching racism, Democrats are that party. You're going to find Democrats that wish to teach racism, that wish to teach identity politics. So it's not surprising.
No, not at all.
I'm just amazed that there aren't more Democrats that aren't revolting against this. You and I have been talking about identity politics for years. Just like the liberal transgender activist movement. We told you years ago where this was going to end up. It was going to destroy liberal feminism, which it's done.
Well, and I guess I wonder what happens from here, because liberals know, the rank and file liberals know, that if you try and go against the agenda, you're going to be called out. Yep. So if you end up not favoring this, and let's say your kids are coming home and they're saying things that you disagree with because they're being taught those things in classrooms, and you're a liberal rank and file, do you just quietly homeschool your child or change their school, put them in a private school? Do you just make a change in another way? That's not going to happen in a big way, I don't believe, but do you just not say anything and say, well, okay, I'll keep voting, but on this, I don't support this? Because there's no way you can look at that and say that's a positive for a child to judge by skin color for the rest of their life when you've taught them quite the opposite in your home.
We know the majority of Democrats, and the majority of Democrats listening right now are against what's going on. We know they are.
Yep.
The Democrats have embraced it, but they've also run away from it. Oh, it doesn't exist. It's not happening. The border isn't happening. Afghanistan wasn't happening. Nothing is happening. Mm-hmm. The opposition, the Republicans and conservatives, are making everything up. And then the poll comes out yesterday, the majority of college students, oh, yeah, we're being taught identity politics. Or excuse me, we're being taught critical race theory. Yeah. Oh, yeah, this. And a significant portion of them agree with it because they've been brainwashed.
Right.
There's only one way to treat people, and that's as individuals.
Yep.
That's it. You treat them as individuals. That's it. There's no other way. You treat them and judge them by the content of their character. That's what you judge them by.
Well, because
which encompasses so much, and the greatest civil rights leader in the United States, as he is viewed as, Martin Luther King, that was his philosophy that the Democrats and the left in this country reject wholeheartedly. And the rank and file Democrats who still vote Democrat, you Democrats listening right now, you know that Martin Luther King was right.
Well, and you also know that eventually it's going to come around to you, because the circular firing squad never sleeps. The liberal circular firing squad will call you out, and they are going to at some point marginalize you. It doesn't matter who you are. Even if your initials are AOC, at some point you're going to become the oppressor.
Whoever thought Martina Navratilova would be viewed as an oppressor.
Right.
You look at whoever thought the two Democratic senators would be viewed as destroying democracy.
Well, Ruth Bader Ginsburg was, again, because she wasn't in lockstep. Imagine that interview with Katie Couric had played out in a big, big way. You and I knew some of the viewpoints of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. We knew. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But how many people were paying attention? Or they just went along with the whole RBG thing and said, no, we're going to champion her. We're going to champion her. How many would have done that? If she were able to catch everyone's attention with that interview and make those points in a solid way, she would have been deemed the oppressor at that point. We can't have people like that on the Supreme Court. That's the way it would have gone down.
If it would have been majorly publicized, but instead I think the mainstream media said we need to hide this.
Yes, that's exactly what Katie Couric did.
Yeah, we need to pretend that it doesn't exist.
Right.
Yeah. 866-90-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara, 866-90 Red Eye. Ton of things to talk about today. Did you see that story from thehill.com? TSA says 40% of workforce is unvaxxed. And they said, we hope, by the time, it gets to the holidays, things will be changing, that they're making progress, and we hope so. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, my gosh, can you imagine if the TSA, if 40% are unvaxxed and they don't have new people to replace them come this holiday season?
Well, I guess what I would ask, what makes you think you're going to get to, I don't know, even 70 or 80% of your workforce being vaxxed by the holidays?
Don't know. We'll have that story coming up here in a little bit. Inflation, really some interesting stats just on inflation. Breitbart actually, just a really interesting article on it, looking at the different aspects of inflation. Something like we did yesterday when we said, you look at the overall amount, 5%, but when you look at certain specific things, when you look at food, when you look at energy, and then you see all the things that affect energy out there, from gasoline to natural gas, what's going to happen this winter, where they believe, your natural gas bill for heating could be up 50%.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then, used cars. And when you look at the specific things, there's a ton of things that aren't going up at a fast rate at all. But when you look at so many of the things that are, as we did yesterday, it's like, oh, so it actually has a bigger impact than just increasing it 5%.
Right.
And as we said, who did the analysis on it? Last week we did this. They did the analysis on it that if you make $70,000 a year, it's that's your average household income, or the median household income in the United States. If you're at $70,000 just this year, we're not finished with the year yet, and this goes back a month ago. Just this year, it's cost you $2,000.
Right.
So, that's just. And again, you're using the average of everything. Probably the 5% is what you're looking at, or the 6%, which gets you to that point. But I guess it all depends on what you're actually buying, how big your family is, what is your food bill, what is your what is your energy bill, what's the efficiency of the furnace that you have, how hot was it, air conditioning, what did it cost if natural gas is running your electricity power source. So there's so many things. How far do you drive? And then I think you brought up one of the greatest points, Eric, when you said people haven't been driving.
No, it seems that the move back to the in-office workday is ramping up, and has been really, I guess, since midsummer, but more so after Labor Day. And so people haven't been buying gasoline every day or every week. They've been sitting at home. They haven't been buying lunch out because they've been eating lunch at home.
Another poll, Americans now favor a reduced government rollout there. Sinema wants infrastructure vote completed first. Oh, here we go again. This is like deja vu. The Steve Bannon subpoena is a nothing burger. We'll get to that and more all coming up.
Here's your forecast.
From Cleveland, Ohio to western Kentucky, a band of showers is moving through this morning, connected with a cold front. Behind the front, much cooler temperatures will be in store. Out ahead of the front, warmer temperatures expected today for the East Coast. So throughout the day, we'll see Cincinnati, Columbus, Pittsburgh pick up more of those showers, affecting points eastward by Saturday. A low pressure area associated with that front could trigger some late afternoon thunderstorms and potential severe weather from the Tennessee Valley into the Ohio Valley later today. Freeze warnings remain in effect tonight across western North Dakota, northeast and southwest Colorado, and eastern Utah. A high of just 52 for Salt Lake City today, 58 for Denver, Dallas 74. Behind that cold front pushing through the Midwest, only 64 today for Indianapolis. Ahead of the front, Atlanta will see 84, 80 in New York City. The national forecast from Red Eye Radio. I'm meteorologist John Trout.
victims of the air conditioning syndrome. Eric Harley and Gary McNamara on Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara, 866-90 Red Eye. Welcome, and good morning. Thanks so much for being here. And also coming up, it just keeps growing and growing, the next Netflix and the internal revolt against Dave Chappelle. Will be interesting to see where that all heads.
Well, the CEO's doubling down, saying, look, basically that his words don't have that much power, that he's free to do this, and this is his artistic expression. And that he doesn't believe that, again, the comments carry that much weight one way or the other. In other words, Dave Chappelle saying something doesn't take away your rights. This is the way I interpret that. It doesn't take away your rights that you may believe you have. So they're not going to cancel.
Here it is. Netflix staffers apparently raised concerns and tried to censor the latest Chappelle special even before it aired, according to a Bloomberg News report that says the outcry is unprecedented in Netflix's history. Employees are planning. Okay, I just lost I printed out the story, and of course, doesn't that drive you crazy when you print out stories and it They cut out
some of the employees are planning a walkout.
Right, exactly.
And so the question is how many employees, but then ultimately, what does this do to subscriptions? So we've always said, look, if you don't like something, you can vote with your dollar. If you don't like a product or a service, for whatever reason.
Right, October 20th, there it is.
Yeah.
October 20th, and the CEO, hasn't responded yet to it. Mm-hmm. But, it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. And I guess, you're right. Does it affect the bottom line? As Norm said on Cheers a long time ago, when they talked about changes to the bar, he said, will it affect the cost of a beer? Mm-hmm. He goes, no. Well, then what do I care?
And that's what, subscription-based streaming services, you follow that dollar directly every single month. How many drop-offs were there? They also can tell how many subscribers started that program, in this case, that Dave Chappelle, or I guess the whole series of Dave Chappelle specials, and if they ever completed watching them. They can tell if you finished watching that particular show. What that tells them is, okay, did they lose interest halfway through? And how many people did? And they can tell that. They can determine that, and whether or not that's the content that, for the most part, their audience, their subscriber base wants to see. All that data is watched very closely. So we'll see, again, if there's any kind of effect here. But it will also be interesting to see what the CEO does about the employees who decide to walk out. You don't have a right to just get up and walk out of your job, but he may afford them that right. He may say, well, if you wish to protest today, then we'll give you the day off to protest. I don't know that I see him doing that, but it's that decision will be up to the company. That's an internal matter.
You have a political party, a major political party that practices racism on a consistent basis with their identity politics. Every time they speak, I guess you could say that we could all be offended.
Sure.
I don't wish to shut up anybody in the Democratic Party, even the ones that are most racist. Even when you have the leader of the Democrat Party lie and act like a hate group leader, I don't want to shut him up. That's the last thing I want to do. Why is it, as we sit here and ponder and pontificate, Pondering and Pontification Friday, why is it that the left always wants to take away people's freedom of speech? I find everybody who disagrees with me, I find their opinions offensive. Does anybody care? By the way, I really don't, but I mean,
well, no, this is what the world has become more and more, or is becoming, and that's a world where it is believed that you do have a right to go through life without being offended, and that is false. You don't.
Democrats, Black Lives Matter, lied about police departments. Mm-hmm. That helped inflame the rhetoric that I believe helped encourage the riots of last year. I don't blame the people for the riots or the acts of lawlessness. That's on the people that did those things.
Yeah, sure.
But it helped to inflame the rhetoric, and there were outright lies. That, to me, and probably many other people, is offensive. Should it be banned? No. Should defamation of character speech be banned? No. Shouldn't be banned. You may be punished later for it. You may be fined later for it, but no, it shouldn't be banned. Why is it, as we ponder, why is it that Democrats wish to get rid of free speech? What are they so afraid of? If they say it's offensive, I can throw that right back at you. We can play this game all day. Well, actually, we almost do 5 hours a day. But we can play it all day. What you say is offensive. The entire identity politics, judging people by groups and not individuals, is as offensive as anything can be in America. When we get down to, okay, how do you get to racism? Stereotyping people by groups. We all know it. That's extremely offensive. I don't wish to shut up. Why don't Eric and I and so many conservatives wish to shut up anybody, but the left wishes to shut up even stand-up comedians? Why is that? Simple answer. We've said it from day one. Simple answer is they can't debate it. They know that they can't debate it. They become frustrated. You ever talk to a liberal, and when you get them with direct points, that then they start getting angry and frustrated? That's all you're seeing right now. When you get angry and frustrated because you can't make your point, the only other avenue you have left is to scream that that person needs to shut up because they are offensive to you. So, who's that British comedian? Remember, he did the whole thing on being offended. He goes,
right.
And?
Right.
So
you're offended.
And in the arena of ideas, as I've stated many times before, in personal settings, do I wish to offend you? No. Am I concerned if I offend you in a personal setting relationship? Yeah, I am. In the arena of ideas, the public arena of ideas, I don't care whether you're offended. I don't care. And I don't care whether you try to offend me.
Well, because, again, we can assign as much power as we want to people's words. If my parents say something to me, I assign a great deal of power because they've had that ultimate influence over me my entire life, of course. If somebody that disagrees with me says something, that's not the case. I just don't give their words that kind of power. But the far left does. But it's not just that. It's not what they say they're offended by. It's what they're afraid of. What they're afraid of is that the entire agenda that they have invested in heavily will come crashing to the ground. That's the ultimate fear that they have. Because it is that investment. We were talking earlier about Ruth Bader Ginsburg. The left had invested so much in her over the years, but especially in the final years of her life. And they championed her. And after you've invested that much, you can't possibly allow, if you're Katie Couric or the liberal media, you can't possibly allow those comments that she made during the interview to get out, because you've invested way too much in that cause. And that's what it comes down to, is that everything, and this is, if you're an activist, it's everything that you are. And you want the world to know it. And the moment someone destroys your argument, it's over, and you can't allow that to happen.
Yeah, so when I look at this, what I see is a bunch of individuals that have frustrated because they can't convince the American public that they're correct. And if you want to look at it worldwide, because it's just not in the United States where the cancel culture exists, but liberalism can't convince people by actually having the debate. And so I think it starts as an individual that you become frustrated, and then when you find other people who become frustrated because they cannot win the argument, that the only thing that they do is they unite together to say, well, we need to shut the other side up.
Right.
I would hate to be in those brains where I'm afraid that I cannot make my argument. It has to be very frustrating to, I think, to any human brain to get to that point that say, because if you're confident in your opinions, it means you believe that you have the correct answers.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't argue it, then sitting there because what your argument is your emotional response, but you can't connect the dots. But the emotional response is enough for you, but that's not enough to not get you angry. You're still livid, part of you in your whatever part of that mind is of our mind is. That you're livid at yourself because you can't make the coherent argument and win the debate in the arena of ideas. That has to be a terrible place to be at for a brain, a human brain, I think. But I think it's that simple. Why do they want, because you and I have been talking about this for years, why do they want to shut the other side up? Why do they want to censor? We don't.
No.
And I never have. In my entire life, I didn't go through a phase, we need to shut them up. Oh, no, we don't. Now we do. Now we don't. I've always thought that. Why? I understand freedom of speech.
Right.
And I revere the freedom of speech. Who was it? What's his name? The psychologist from Canada. Oh, can't think of it. The clinical psychologist. Jordan Peterson said it. And we're talking about Canada. He said, we don't have the free speech that America has.
Oh, no. No, they don't.
And he is extremely impressed with free speech in America and the First Amendment.
Well, and again, once that is lost, then there is full control over every person by the American government. And the attempt is to control thought. The attempt is to control your actions more and more, but it's controlling you. If you cannot issue your opinion, if you cannot speak freely, then there's no road to change. There's no road to anything political by the individual in this nation. It is at that point the government dictating to you your thoughts and what you can express.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara, 86690 Red Eye, if you'd like to get in on Pondering and Pontification Friday. Made that up as we started the show.
Yeah. During the top of the hour break, we'll ponder on whether or not that is a good title for Friday.
Well, I was just thinking, I mean, we're on vacation next week, so why not the last day? We need to just ponder all the issues out there, right?
We'll just ponder our way into vacation.
And we'll get your calls and comments coming up following the top of the hour. 86690 Red Eye.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.
Do you own or rent your home? Sure you do, and I'll bet it can be hard work. You know what's easy? Bundling policies with Geico. Geico makes it easy to bundle your homeowner's or renter's insurance along with your auto policy. It's a good thing, too, because you already have so much to do around your home. Go to geico.com, get a quote, and see how much you could save. It's Geico easy. Visit geico.com today. That's geico.com.
Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Pilot Flying J Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the world, 86690 Red Eye. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. RedEyeRadioshow.com is where we stream live. Get our app, put it on your phone, and listen when you wish to. You just download it, and boom, there you go. It's very easy for you to do. Had some interesting discussion in the first hour, just the whole Dave Chappelle thing, and the walkout now expected October 20th because he needs to be censored. And we've talked about this before, but I just find it fascinating the way that the left that used to believe in free speech, the old school leftists believed in free speech, and now it's like anything we can do to shut the other side up, and we just question, why do they do that? They do that because they can't make the argument anymore. They can't win in the arena of ideas, so that's what you do. When you know you can win, when you have confidence in your opinion, and you know that you can win in the arena of ideas. You wish to be involved in that. Mm-hmm. And the last thing you want to do is shut people up. But we've seen it across the board from the left. Democrats listening right now, the rank and file, the voter, they know it's wrong. They understand free speech. Mm-hmm. They understand the political free speech should be there. Everybody understands that incitement to riot, incitement to violence is wrong, but we also understand how that law has to be specified.
Yeah, sure.
We understand the legal constraints of that particular law, and no one is encouraging it. But when we said, for example, defamation of character, you're going to be able to say it. You're going to be punished after for it.
Yeah.
Incitement to riot, maybe criminally. Defamation of character would be a civil lawsuit.
Mm-hmm.
Incitement to riot, I guess, would actually be the actual criminal charge there, which would have to be in order to get to a criminal charge, would have to be extremely specific. But that's not what we're talking about here. So let's not change the topic. I don't want to change the topic because the topic is political free speech in the arena of ideas. And it is the left that wishes to stomp on it, not the right. And if anybody in the right ever does, they are challenged by many people on the right.
Yeah. Look, we've had discussions over the years where, again, the left wants to go after people they disagree with and shut them down and shut down their business, their livelihood, their speech, all of it. And ultimately, I've held the position that, well, okay, if that's bakery doesn't want to make a gay wedding cake, then they shouldn't be forced to. And that community can decide whether or not they want to support that bakery. If Dave Chappelle wants to do the comedy that he's doing and Netflix wants to pay him to do that, and the audience isn't there, subscriptions just go away in huge numbers, guess what's going to happen to Dave Chappelle? Well, people are going to be afraid to hire him because the audience isn't going to be there for him, not because somebody shouted him down, but because there was a disdain for what he was saying. You can vote with your dollar. And you can also, if you work for an employer like Netflix and you don't like the way they conduct business, you can choose another employer. You can go somewhere else. Right now, there's millions of jobs that are open right now. So you're free to do that. But there is no inherent right to go through life unoffended.
No.
It doesn't exist. And you can choose what you're going to be offended by. Good for you. That doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. It's nothing. It is zero. That's the sum. You can say whatever you want to say, and if somebody else is offended by that, it also means zero. It's always been a zero-sum game. Now, if you want to sit down and have a discussion, you can do that, and sometimes something very meaningful can come out of a discussion, a debate.
Mm-hmm.
But the left, their MO is to shut the opposition down. As a conservative, I never want to do that. Please keep talking. I don't want to stifle anybody. It got to where you and I said it was going to get to years ago. We said it. Slippery slope is behind us. Forget that. We're at the bottom, and that's where we're staying. And this is it. It's full on. And we said years ago, for those liberals, own it. Come out and just say it. And guess what? They started to.
Yeah.
More and more, they started saying it. And then investing heavily in it as activists. And when you've got that kind of full-on investment, when you jump into a cause with your entire being, the last thing you can do is have anybody debate you and tear apart your argument. The science that Dave Chappelle points out in his latest special, The Closer on Netflix, the science that he points out is very basic biological science. But we can't have that because we will threaten to take your livelihood. In the case of our colleague Ben Shapiro, will threaten to take you outside and assault you. You can't bring up biology. And that's the party of science saying that.
If you are somebody and you view yourself as trans and you are biologically a man and you believe that you are a woman and it hurts you for somebody to come out and say, you're not a woman, you're a man. If that hurts you, I have compassion for that human mind that seems to have that, that is going through that particular hurt. I am not going to lie. I'm not going to pretend. I can still have compassion and not pretend and not lie.
No, I think people should live the
right.
life that they believe they should be living. That's the other thing, is that You do have a right to that. However you want to live your life, you do have the right to that. Now, there may be some boundaries along the way, and I think we've touched on those over and over and over. But in terms of you living your life and the way you want to live your life, as long as you're not violating anybody else's rights, and I'll defend you if someone is violating your actual rights, then that's absolutely the American way. And I wouldn't want anybody living a life that they feel that it is disturbing them mentally, that is causing them pain, and that they don't feel like themselves when they're living. I wouldn't want that for anybody. And it's none of my business how you live your life. But when the government starts telling me, when people imply that the government should create laws, and they tried to do this in California, they have effectively done this in other nations, where they can control the speech. It is punishable. It is actionable. And they will come after you. Don't you dare violate it. That's where I have to draw the line. If you're offended, okay then. If you say something that offends me, okay then. But it doesn't, beyond that, it doesn't go anywhere, because you don't have a right. You're not forced to listen to what I say. You're not forced to agree. I'm not forced to listen to what you say or agree. But there is no right to go through life unoffended.
No. And offended is something that is a creation of the individual who is being offended.
Yeah.
That is your creation.
Mm-hmm.
I have no control over that. For the government to determine what is offensive to you and not offensive to me and punish for that should never happen in a free society. And what we're dealing with here is, on one side, telling the truth, the other side willing to live or wishing to live a lie, and getting the government to support the lie and then punish those who will not participate in the lie. That is unacceptable in a free society. That is not a defamation of character that could be handled in a lawsuit, in a civil lawsuit. It is fact, as, by the way, that's exactly the word that Chappelle used. Mm-hmm. Fact.
Mm-hmm.
And it is not incitement to riot.
Nope. No.
And I know it part of me having to go through this, and I know, on so many topics these days, it actually feels like I'm back in elementary school having to explain simple, well-accepted things of our society for such a long time that at times I'm like, wow, I feel like a kindergarten teacher. And I am not trying to offend anybody by that, but these are such simple concepts of free speech that is so ingrained into our culture. I do find it amazing that there are so many people out there that don't wish to accept that and don't wish to promote that. Because I don't just accept it, that there's freedom of speech. I absolutely will defend it to any liberal out there, that they should be able to go as far as they wish to go in their political speech.
Yeah.
Even if it disagrees with me 180 degrees. I don't care.
Yep. I also don't have that right to go through life unoffended.
Yeah. None.
And, that's it. If it's the end of the discussion, and this is where it's headed. If you say, because in a discussion by the far left's standard of today, opposition itself is offensive.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. You oppose my viewpoint, no matter what it is.
Right.
It's immediately offensive.
It's immediately offensive.
Right.
And we can give you, I don't know how many examples. Go back and listen to podcasts. We've pointed it out, but you really don't need to do that because we're right.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Tips from J.J. Keller and Associates Incorporated on distracted driving, eating, and drinking. While it might save you time to eat while you're driving, it isn't a good idea. Eating and drinking requires you to take a hand off the wheel, and it also pulls your attention away from the road. Recent research has shown that eating and drinking while driving may be even more dangerous than texting. Research shows drivers who eat or drink while driving may have trouble staying in their lane and brake more often than drivers who are not distracted. Whenever possible, wait until you're pulled over to eat and drink. If you must eat and drink while driving, avoid foods that need to be unwrapped or that are difficult to eat, and drink from a straw so you don't have to tilt your head back and take your eyes off the road. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller and Associates Incorporated. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
This report is brought to you by National Truck Protection and Premium 2000 Plus, the #1 selling aftermarket truck warranties in North America, available at thousands of used truck dealers everywhere.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. 86690 Red Eye got into talking about here, pondering about free speech just because of the whole Dave Chappelle thing and the news that some in the company are going to have a walkout on October 20th.
Yeah.
Apparently in protest. Let's go to Larry in Illinois. Larry, welcome. You're on Red Eye Radio. Welcome. Hi.
Hi. I'm glad you brought up the free speech issue because it used to be, and I'm a little bit older than you are, it used to be you would tolerate speech. Then it got to the point where it is forced upon you now. If you're just sitting there quietly and respectfully, that's not good enough. Now you have to say the same things they are saying, or else there's something wrong with you. And I noticed that with a lot of the issues in Congress right now where they're going after this one congresswoman because she's not speaking the right line. And this is a very dangerous trend that we've had going on for the past few years. I just was glad that you guys brought this up about the free speech. We no longer have free speech in this country.
Yeah,
we do.
We do, but
we do.
I would say
we have constitutional free speech. It still exists.
We may have that, but it's a joke now.
Well, I would say on the social level, there are, and you mentioned you can't just sit there and say nothing. For the activist, silence is violence, and if you're sitting there having a meal at a restaurant and you're not up and you're not marching with them, they're going to shout you down. They're going to shout you down when you haven't said a word.
Yes.
And so it is this. This is the attitude on the social level. It is not going to. This is why they need to change the Constitution in many ways on the far left. This is the attempt on free speech, is because they want you to believe that opposition is, again, offensive and it is hurtful. It causes great pain. And thank you, Larry.
When we talk about constitutional free speech is there, institutionally trying to intimidate you not to promote what you believe is probably larger than it's ever been in my lifetime. We talk about institutional racism. This is institutional anti-free speech, bullying, intimidation that exists out there, but it exists in many pseudo-government institutions like colleges. and inside the government, that if you don't agree with it, then you can be punished for it. What's going to happen with critical race theory when you tell the human resources you're full of crap? And I won't sign. I'm not going to sign a document that I understand and will live up to your racist philosophy.
Right. Well, because if it's going to be implemented in schools, at some point administratively, it's going to be implemented in the workforce. In other words, those that govern the workforce and the rules in the workforce will implement it and say that each employer must recognize this, and there must be standards in this regard. And if that is the case, then and it wouldn't take long at all. Because if you believe you're doing the right thing, then how would this be bad in implementing this in the workforce administratively?
Right.
On the web at RedEyeRadioShow.com and on your radio nightly. Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Carney, and I'm Gary McNamara. 866-90 Red Eye. Welcome and good morning. Pondering and Pontification Friday.
Yeah.
I don't know. We're Doomed Friday at one point, then we had Bombshell Friday. I don't know. Pontification and
the bonus
Pondering
show.
Friday, the bonus show. That may be it may be too long of a title for the show.
Yeah.
But no, I love talking about the whole concept of free speech and what's going on, because sometimes we just don't, sit down and just say, okay, well, let's set the table. What is it out there? And it's been that way for a while, but the left is the mindset that tries to stifle free speech. Both free speech in the constitutional way of free speech, and free speech when it comes to commercial free speech, when it comes to and I say commercial free speech, which is the fact that it's not constitutional free speech that they're talking about with Dave Chappelle. They wish the company to silence him. They wish to censor in the private marketplace. They wish to shut people up. They wish to pressure different places to different sponsors to shut people up. We've never done that. We've never been for that on our show. We were big supporters of Air America when they existed.
Yeah.
Even though they were a competing radio network, we were totally supportive of them. Why? They gave us so much material.
It was great. It was really great. We love to play audio. But the one thing that we can do is play them in their own words. I think a lot of programs will have somebody on to interview them, and in the interview, they're just going to kind of walk around it. They're going to spin. They're going to do, whatever. And that, to me, that really doesn't serve a purpose. I would rather hear them talking when they mean it. And so we've had a lot of great audio over the years, playing them in their own words when they do mean it, when they talk like they believe. And in fact, we brought it up yesterday to make the point. Van Jones sounds like, at CNN, sounds like a moderate analyst at CNN, and not the leftist radical that he is and has been in the past. And you and I were pondering whether or not somebody told him to tone it down, or if he himself might be looking to run one day and he wants to kind of be, perceived as somebody in the center We didn't know, but again, the tone changes, and the idea is that we've always promoted is you should be whoever you are, and especially when you're talking about what you believe in a free society, you should be talking openly and keep talking. I don't want to shut anybody down.
No, you just made a point there that I just want to expand on. Even in the last week, how many times have we said this article comes from a liberal publication, not a conservative publication?
Right.
If you look at the majority of audio cuts that we play in the show, and the majority of articles, probably, I won't say the majority, but probably at least half the articles that we read, they're all from liberal publications.
Right.
And the reason we do that is because we either wish to debate their ideas, we wish to point out their hypocrisy, or we do wish to point out when they actually get it right.
Yeah.
I don't need to, and I know other talk shows may do it, I don't need to play, even though we will, if there's a great point that's made by a conservative, but I don't need to play the daily rhetoric from Republicans. I already know what that is, or conservatives, the usual stuff, and for the most part, I agree with it. Not all the time, but I agree with it. But if there's a time when I don't disagree, or when I don't agree with it, we'll also play that too. We'll also play that too.
Sure. Yeah.
Because we'll say, hey, did you hear this in our pre-show meeting? Yeah, I don't agree with this. Let's play that.
Oh, yeah.
So, and so we have no problem talking about the divisions of Republicans and the divisions of the, on a political, with political points, the divisions between inside the Republican Party and inside the Democratic Party. But our most fun is actually talking about the issues and the ideas that exist out there and taking those that disagree with us and letting you know what they think and then telling you why we believe they're wrong.
Yeah. And because for us, it's always been about the ideas. And if someone says something that we disagree with, or we believe they started on the wrong premise, or they're focusing on the wrong thing, they're like changing the topic. It doesn't matter if it's somebody that's a Republican or a so-called conservative, or if they're a liberal. It's important to make those points and have a discussion about them and counter them if necessary. Because otherwise, I guess, what is the point in debate, especially political debate that is designed to shape the future? I've heard people say, and I think some of it was tongue-in-cheek, yeah, people have too much free speech. We criticized the former president, President Trump, for talking to the media sometimes to a fault, because he's never afraid to talk to somebody in the media. And the only advice we would give him is, well, don't engage, right? Don't let Stephanopoulos go down a road in that one interview that he went down. Stop him and redirect him and control the conversation like how to do.
That wasn't trying to take away in any way his voice being heard. It was, we agree with you on this particular issue. Message the damn thing correctly. That's what that was.
Win it like you know how to do, and control the conversation like you know how. That's the I guess the other frustrating thing, or was the other frustrating thing during that term, and it's again, if you can control the messaging, because to the point that the Wall Street Journal wrote the editorial board and said, look, you're not doing a good job, and they were addressing then President Trump at addressing your accomplishments. And I thought to myself, there has never really been another person in modern society that I could say is above Donald Trump in self-promotion, right? I mean,
Madonna, Grandma Gaga.
I don't know if that's self-promotion or
disgusting behavior.
Weird.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, certainly not age appropriate these days. But whatever. But in self-promoting, putting his name on everything, and it's the greatest, and this is going to be the greatest, and all of these things along the way in pop culture that he was involved in, and then as president, you can if you focus on those key items and those accomplishments, there clearly are a number, in fact, a great number of winning items there. But in terms of the discussion for the left, if you think about what the operatives have done in recent years, what have they done to shape conversation? When you think about free speech, you have to think about also the actions of people, including, according to the indictment on Sussman, the Hillary campaign and the lawyer that represented the Hillary campaign, and creating lies and floating them out there. We're not just talking about openly lying about someone. We're talking about creating a situation, lying to the FBI in order to leverage that so you could get it to the media and scream that the FBI is doing an investigation on it. That kind of nefarious activity, that kind of a manipulation of thought in order to shape a conversation and narrative is especially dangerous. Yeah. And when you add to it that the left doesn't want you to counter what they're saying, and again, opposition in and of itself is offensive to the left. Opposition, an opposing view, is offensive, and they'll deem it dangerous. When they deem it dangerous and destructive, the next move is to make that enforceable. And that should frighten everybody. I don't care where you stand politically. You don't have to engage in the conversation. That's not mandatory. But if you're going to, then you need to know someone opposes your viewpoint. A number of people will disagree with you, and it's a great number. Again, you don't have to play in the game, but when you're in the arena of ideas, there are two directions. There's your view and the opposing view. And if the effort is there to shut down the opposing view and deem it dangerous, then the next logical step is to create an enforcement mechanism. And if you have any questions, see Canada.
But sometimes you jump the shark, which the left has done on a variety of different issues, but they've been successful on it until they get to a particular point. For example, on critical race theory, I think jumping the shark was it getting into the schools and the parents all of a sudden realizing it. After it had been happening, I mean, that was evolving over a period of time. We had talked about it. That started with identity politics. And it's also the people of the country recognizing when there's dangerous points of view out there that they need to recognize it when it comes from a major political party. And when those ideas are viewed as abstract, you still need to attack them with the full force of your backing. And in this case, I say, the Republicans, it needs to be brought to the attention. You and I have been talking about identity politics probably since we've been together. Yeah. But it's just recently that the public has realized what the abstract was now has become the reality, and the reality they're like, where the hell did this come from? And you and I look at each other and say, well, this was planted 2 decades ago. Mm-hmm. We've been talking about this over and over and over and over and over again, the identity politics. It could only end up in this position. You couldn't end up any other way. I meet a lot of people that are shocked. They go, what the hell happened? How the hell did we ever get to the point where I've got to sit there and call somebody by a particular pronoun? When did it ever come to the point that I have to tell somebody who was a man that they're a woman, and if not, I may be punished, or that's where they wish to go? Where did this come from? We said, well, this has been around for a long time.
Right. Sure.
It's just, it was viewed in the abstract before, and you didn't take it serious. It's the old thing, you guys are going down the slippery slope. It's not really going to happen. And it all happened.
Well, the problem with the social, the cocktail socialists is that at some point from that cocktail gathering, there must be something further. And what is that? To put things into motion. The cocktail socialists, by the way, that's how they referred to
Obama.
Barack Obama.
We did.
And the idea is that, well, it's one thing to stand around and talk about ideas in the abstract. But when you're president of the United States and you're capable of implementing them through executive order or through your administration, now you're drawing a line.
But just think of how they actually took racism and call it anti-racism and have convinced a significant number of people that racism is actually anti-racism.
Right.
The Democrats have succeeded in doing that
and if you
to
oppose,
a certain extent.
And if you oppose them, you're a racist.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara, 866-90-RED-EYE. That's pretty amazing. Just tell me the story about the woman.
Okay.
That the meteor went through her house.
Yeah, this is my worst fear. Ruth Hamilton, sound asleep. On the night of October 3rd, she awoke to the sound of a crash and her barking dog. She found a hole in her bedroom ceiling, thought a tree may have fallen on her house, and called 911. Well, as she's on the phone, she realizes that there is a rock, roughly the size of a man's hand, between her two pillows on the bed. Responders correctly assumed that it was a meteorite. It was a meteorite from an asteroid. Others in the area, and she's in somewhere in British Columbia, and others in the area had noticed sounds and something in the sky that they noticed. But yeah, that's my worst. That's my worst nightmare.
Wow.
How does that not happen more often, by the way?
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.
Nothing on the road gives truck drivers the peace of mind to power on like Hercules tires and their trucker-tested, rig-ready StrongGuard series, featuring premium materials and an advanced construction that extends mileage and tread life, plus 3D siping, giving you more control in slippery conditions. StrongGuard was built from the ground up to let you cover more ground. Whatever you're hauling, wherever you're hauling it, the legendary Hercules Performance Promise is your co-pilot in confidence, covering workmanship and materials, casing allowances and retreads, and a limited protection policy that lasts up to 7 years. Protect your payload without overpaying and power on with StrongGuard, only from Hercules Tires. To learn more about Hercules Tires, log on to HerculesTiresCommercial.com. That's HerculesTiresCommercial.com.
Now it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Pilot Flying J Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, 866-90-RED-EYE. He's Eric, I'm Gary. Get our Red Eye Radio app, because our show is our podcast and our podcast is our show, so you can listen anytime you want, download it on your phone, hook up your smart speakers to it, and boom, you're all set to go.
Yeah.
So the FDA vaccine advisors recommend the emergency use authorization for the booster dose of Moderna's vaccine yesterday, and normally the FDA goes along with what they have said. Now it's half the dose. All 19 members of the committee supported authorizing a 50 microgram booster dose, half the size of the 100 microgram doses used in the primary series of the 2-dose vaccine at least 6 months after the second dose, and only for certain groups: people over the age of 65, people ages 18 to 64 who are at high risk of severe COVID-19, and people ages 18 to 64 whose exposure to the coronavirus in their settings or jobs put them at risk for COVID-19 complications or severe illnesses. Wouldn't that be everybody?
I pretty much. I guess it means healthcare workers and first responders. I don't, right. or why would that not mean someone who works at a grocery store?
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Does it seem like that the way they're writing this is a CNN article, is almost like, well, better safe than sorry. Members of the committee said they were not entirely convinced the data showed that the booster was necessary or that it increased protection.
Well, then why would you then apply or recommend, rather, emergency use? Emergency use, those two words, when used together, tells me that this is urgent.
Well, we had told you that the group before this, because we brought you the story the other day where they said the Moderna vaccine may be holding.
Right.
Now, here's what they said. The quote, "The data are not perfect, but these are extraordinary times, and we have to work with imperfect data," said Dr. Eric Rubin, editor-in-chief of the New England Journal of Medicine and professor at Harvard Chan School of Public Health.
Okay.
Quote, "We can't afford to have healthcare workers, even if not sick, be positive and infected and have to stay home from work because in parts of the country there's a shortage of healthcare workers and burnout everywhere," said Dr. Stanley Perelman, a professor of pediatrics at the University of California, San Diego. The meeting will continue Friday when members are expected to vote on boosters for the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, and we'll hear a presentation on mix and match vaccines. What I get out of this is, and it sounds different than the Pfizer. It sounds like with Moderna, they're saying, we don't know.
Well, and half the dose. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. That means half of one of the shots that you got before. It's a two-shot vaccine.
Yes.
And what they're saying is it is half of one of those shots would be the booster level.
And the one thing from the stories that came out the other day from the scientist is they're finding out that Moderna has staying power. And just the way that they didn't sit there and say, they didn't sit there and come out and go, look, we believe that, because here's what I want to hear from doctors. I don't want to hear, well, everything's imperfect, so better safe than sorry, because that's what I get out of this. What I want to hear is what we have seen is over a 6-month period, Pfizer was down, whatever it is, I'm just going to throw, Pfizer was down with the production of antibodies 43%, and so we believe that a full dose is necessary there. On the Moderna, it was down 15% or 12% or whatever, and so we figured just to be safe, because we know that the number of antibodies is going down, that a 25% dose, which would be, because it's a 2-shot vaccine, as you pointed out, a 25% basically of what you got before will just ensure that the antibodies stay high. At least that would be based on science. Nothing I heard here in the CNN article is based on science.
Well, again, then how do you measure the dosage for the booster if you start out by saying, well, it's imperfect data and we can't have, what's a given that you're not going to have perfect data? That's a given. But what data do you have?
Right.
And tell me why you believe it's flawed. Give me the little footnotes at the bottom and say, okay, this is who we studied for how long, and this is why we came to the conclusion of having the vaccine at this point, whatever it is, 6 months or 8 months, and recommending the 25% overall dosage.
Well, something, you just made a great point there, because you're saying show us where it's flawed, because what they're saying is it's not perfect data, which implies that, they can't trust the readings. Well,
right.
What do you mean you can't trust the readings? When did this? No, I'd ask. When did this? Are you saying you can't trust the readings, or are you saying, as what we got the other day? And again, it's implied through the stories that are written from these people that that in the media that are covering what's going on. Where the last story we read 2 days ago, I didn't think. Remember, I went, wow, there may not be a Moderna booster. Right. By the way that article was written,
right? Because
they said Moderna seems to be keeping the antibody, levels up. And so they may not suggest doing it, and then a couple of days later, okay, they're going to do it, but it's going to be a 25% of the total that you've received so far dose. And so that's the question: is the data imperfect, or did you actually believe the data, and the data is close to what you believe is happening? But you really can't justify giving the booster, but the political pressure is there to give the booster.
Right.
Because if you give the booster, if you give the conspiracy theorists would think, and by the way, they answered the question, the variety of doctors here and the way they wrote the article on CNN, it seems like you're saying, well, we're not really sure, but we're going to give it anyway. Well, why? Is it political? To ensure that you give that booster, to make people believe that these things are much more serious, and even if you get it, it still can be serious, so you better get your first shot or your second shot?
Well, we already know the White House's pressure on the FDA regarding boosters. It's a given. 2 top people at the FDA are stepping down as a result of it. And so then you show up and say, well, it's not perfect data, but we think, why is the dosage 25%? Tell me why.
And then here's the other article from CNN, the following article. Moderna's emergency youth authorization request mirrored the groups authorized to receive a booster dose of Pfizer's vaccine. Yet some experts are noting that while the antibodies may wane over time, the initial 2-dose regimen for both vaccines is still holding up against severe COVID-19 infections. Dr. Paul Offit, member of the FDA Vaccines and Related Biological Products Advisory Committee that held the vote, told CNN on Thursday that proper expectations need to be set about what vaccines are supposed to do and how they remain effective. We have to define what's the goal of this vaccine. If the goal of this vaccine is protection against serious illness, meaning the kind of illness that causes you to seek medical attention or go to the hospital or ICU, the current vaccines as 2-dose vaccines are doing exactly that. So you don't really need a booster done, at least as far as those data are concerned.
Yeah, sorry, but this reeks of, and you wonder why people don't trust the system here?
Because you're not nobody is talking to me as a scientist. Right. Well, that was talking as a scientist.
But it counters what the other story
it counters exactly the other one. So you're getting the mixed mumbo jumbo. Mm-hmm. Then you're saying that you believe the data, because the other doctor was saying, well, because the imperfect data, which led you to believe, well, they can't trust the data. So no, what I believe is happening is they do trust the data, but they want to give it anyway for whatever reason. I'm not even going to speculate what the reason is. But because they're contradicting themselves, you can suspect that one of the reasons might be political.
Well,
and I have
based on 2 top officials leaving the FDA.
Yes. And I believe the vaccines work, by the way. I've got the Moderna. I've got both shots of the Moderna.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter whether I believe it works. It's how you're communicating as scientists to the public.
Well, and in a time when we've pretty much reached the point where people who choose to get the vaccine have gotten it. We're almost to the end of that right now. And so if you're trying to gain the trust of the people who say they're not going to get it, whether it's wait and see or they don't trust it altogether. You're not going to do that with this kind of lack of science.
And then off it says here and that although he voted to recommend the half-dose booster shots for some people 6 months after their first 2 doses of Moderna's vaccine, he doesn't think everyone needs one. Quote, I do worry about the sort of 18 to 29-year-old because that's the group that has the highest risk of inflammation of the heart muscle. So without sort of clear benefit that the third dose is necessary, I think we've created this kind of third dose fever in this country because of the way that it is played out.
Political.
And you wonder why people don't believe a damn thing anybody is saying.
No, right there, I'm telling you that right there. That thought right there closes the door for a great number of people. Because if you came out and you said, if the FDA panel came out and said, no, it's highly beneficial, and here's why. We believe it's needed at this point. Or even break it down into the group. All right. Those with underlying conditions and most susceptible, and here's why. And this is what the study shows. Here's what the data shows. Well, then you've got science working, but when you say, well, we don't know, it's imperfect data, but here you go. Oh, yeah, but it may not be for everybody because, there are side effects with people in the 18 to 29 group, and, I kind of worry about you just shut the door right there for a number of people on vaccines right there.
And when he said booster shot fever, he's talking about the politics.
Yes. That
it is of the administration pushing
for it. Yes.
Before the science was in.
Exactly.
God. Oh,
I mean,
this is why I get it. Yeah, go ahead.
This is another. I won't say crisis, but this is another situation Biden created himself. Those two people left the FDA, chose to leave the FDA for a reason. Because Izzy Mandelbaum threw down the gauntlet again. That's the defiance of this president. Don't you tell him you don't need a booster. I don't care if you're a scientist at the FDA. I don't care. You need the booster because I say you do. Come on, man.
866-90-RED-EYE.
This is the Marketplace Minute. I'm Justin Ho. The stock market was pretty upbeat on Thursday. The Dow rose 1 0.6%. The S&P and the Nasdaq gained over 1 0.7%. The number of people applying for new unemployment benefits fell last week to less than 300,000 claims. That's the smallest number in a week since the pandemic started. The number of people getting unemployment checks also fell to 2.5 million. The country's big banks have been raking it in this past quarter. Bank of America and Wells Fargo both said profit rose almost 60%. JP Morgan and Citigroup profits are up as well. Banks are setting aside less cash to cover bad loans. And natural gas prices could rise 30% this winter on average, according to the Energy Information Administration. That's thanks to higher fuel costs across the board and a cold winter forecast. I'm Justin Ho with the Marketplace Minute.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara, 866-90-RED-EYE. So, going through that all, it looks like that since the FDA panel voted unanimously to recommend the authorization for, a half of one of the booster shots of the, because if you got, what did they call it again? 50 micrograms or something is what they'll give you. You've already received 200 in both of them. So The interesting thing is the different doctors on the panel and what they said, because what you read out of it is this is political. That they look at it and they say the Moderna vaccine's doing its job. He said, and if the job of the vaccine is to keep people out of the hospital and from dying, it's done its job. So what he's saying is the political part of it, and that's how they look at it as a medical professional. If you get the vaccine and you don't end up in the hospital and you don't die, then the vaccine's done its job. Move on.
Right.
If your whole goal is that nobody can even have any sort of infection of the virus, well, that's a whole different ballgame that I view, even the scientists view, is political.
Well,
because
that's
they view
that's
that
where
as
the political play is, and that is we have to stop it 100%, which is impossible. That's not going to happen, and that is what drives the Biden administration to make moves like they're making. And it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, if they get this approval here, we'll see it in the spring of next year, early summer of next year, another booster round. Because they have to keep that political power play in motion. And it's dangerous when you do this in either direction, because if these scientists that are involved actually do believe that ultimately it is warranted, even for certain groups, then you're building this level of distrust by the doubling down of this administration. And if you're forcing these scientists to move in a way they feel intimidated if they don't move in that direction, then that's also dangerous.
Yep.
Here's your forecast.
From Cleveland, Ohio to western Kentucky, a band of showers is moving through this morning, connected with a cold front. Behind the front, much cooler temperatures will be in store. Out ahead of the front, warmer temperatures expected today for the East Coast. So throughout the day, we'll see Cincinnati, Columbus, Pittsburgh pick up more of those showers, affecting points eastward by Saturday. A low-pressure area associated with that front could trigger some late afternoon thunderstorms and potential severe weather from the Tennessee Valley into the Ohio Valley later today. Freeze warnings remain in effect tonight across western North Dakota, northeast and southwest Colorado, and eastern Utah. A high of just 52 for Salt Lake City today, 58 for Denver, Dallas 74. Behind that cold front pushing through the Midwest, only 64 today for Indianapolis. Ahead of the front, Atlanta will see 84, 80 in New York City. The national forecast from Red Eye Radio. I'm meteorologist John Trout.
Your forecast is brought to you by Low Viscosity Kendall Super DFE. With increased protection and fuel savings, low viscosity leads to victory. Kendall Motor Oil. You get out what you put in.
Cyber Ninjas, Eric Harley and Gary McNamara on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara, 866-90 Red Eye. I knew this was going to happen. I think you mentioned it.
Yeah.
Prince William delivered an apparent jab at the billionaire space race yesterday, saying that the world's greatest minds should be more focused on saving Earth than looking beyond our planet's horizons. With the hype and hoopla about William Shatner going up, which is really cool. I thought it was really cool. And when I saw that story yesterday, it just brought me back to the moon landing, the original moon landing, and that was a huge talk. Government shouldn't be spending any money on just going to the moon. The moon is a waste. Even though people were for it, there was an active opposition against it. That this is not the way that we should be spending our money. All of our money should be spent down here and not up there. But that was government money. No.
Right.
And you had mentioned the other day.
Yeah.
You said the other day, goes that, wait till this happens. And here you go. That the billionaires should be spending their money here on Earth rather than sending people into space.
Billionaires can spend their money anywhere they want to. But this is the, liberal mindset that my moral standard should dictate what you do with your money and your property.
It is a little bit of a liberal circular firing squad, too, though.
I would say, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Because all those billionaires are not conservative.
No, that they are not. And it is, you can see it on the horizon every time. You know what the liberal firing squad is coming after. And I knew they would come after this. There was no doubt in my mind this was going to happen. And here we are. How dare you? How dare you? Look, I have no idea if we're ever going to get to the point. I do wonder if we'll get to the point of space tourism finally taking people to the moon. That would be pretty incredible for an individual to be able to pay, and I think it's probably be a lot more than $500,000. What you saw William Shatner do the other day is roughly about $500,000, but I think going to the moon would cost you a little bit more, especially if you want first class. And so I think
Do you get a little bag of pretzels?
Yeah, probably.
I'm flying tonight, so
yeah.
Will I get a little bag of pretzels?
Yeah.
I'm going to pretend. I love flying, by the way. I'm just going to pretend that I'm taking off. We're going to go up instead of to 38,000 feet. We're going to go right up to 360,000.
Well, you are flying in the evening, right?
Yes.
So it will be dark. You can just pretend that you've gone into space.
By the way, one of the coolest things is, because I was thinking of it when we had the thunderstorms roll in the other day. Mm-hmm. If you've ever flown at night and there are major thunderstorms, even if your plane avoids them, whatever, when they're off in the distance, that's the coolest thing ever. Yeah, it really is. I mean, you want something that could sit there and say, okay, that looking at it from this perspective, you're flying at 35,000 feet, and you see it, even if they're 50 miles away. I mean, it just lights up the sky. It is the coolest thing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And I think, again, if the private sector wants to do this, there's been the back and forth about Elon Musk and how much government money he's taken for his Tesla Corporation and everything else. But on space travel, I would say this. I think there is an argument. I have great faith in the private sector in the development of new technologies as a result of space travel and exploration. And as long as if we are putting any government money into that, which we are, then that is shared. That intellectual property is something that the public is going to benefit from and also has ownership in. But I do have, and just generally speaking, I can't say this specifically about SpaceX or about Blue Origin or any of them, but generally speaking, I do put more confidence into the private sector than I do the public sector.
Well, we are very interested to see the government relationship of a bidding process with the private sector on spacecraft development in a bidding process than the monopoly of the government running everything.
Right.
We are very interested in seeing how this experiment goes. Would we be safe there hedging our bets?
Yes,
Okay.
and that is not to demean the work or diminish any of the work of the great minds at NASA. And,
no,
and
it's not.
Hopefully my friend Chris Mattman, who is the chief IT officer there at JPL, is not listening right now. Or if he is, Chris, this isn't about the great minds there. It's about the government efficiencies and inefficiencies. And because there's been great technology that has come as a result of space travel. And we see that every single day. You know, Captain Kirk, his little communicating device became the flip phone. See, it played out in real life. Kirk invented cell phones. I think we all know that. But the whole idea ultimately is that we do learn. Now, the mission of an Elon Musk in getting to Mars and, some kind of civilization on Mars, my confidence starts to wane when we walk into that side of the discussion. But the technology that comes as a result of that exploration, to me, is extremely valuable. And I do, again, generally speaking, have greater confidence in the private sector in creating the efficiencies along the way.
Let me just tell you what Prince William said, okay? He, in an interview with BBC that aired on Thursday, he warned of the rise in climate anxiety among young people around the world.
How dare
and
you.
Futures are basically threatened by the climate crisis. We need some of the world's greatest brains and minds fixed on trying to repair this planet, not trying to find the next place to go and live, William said, a criticism at there. Now, at the billionaires, heading out into space. Here's what I would say, and I would like to say it with Bjorn Lundberg next to me, as we've talked about Bjorn Lundberg before, the scientist who believes that man-made global warming is happening to a certain extent. He doesn't know what that extent is, but he believes that everything that the liberals are doing in order to correct the problem is wrong, and in many cases has the exact opposite effect.
Right.
So if you're saying that we should, as Prince William I'm sure is, saying that we should continue with where the world is, where the elite liberals are on solving climate change, I can make an argument, you're throwing money down the toilet, it's better spent in space. Now, that goes again, that's the secondary argument, because the first argument is, shut up, don't tell other people how to spend their money.
Well, and if you're looking at it, because I would, to single out Elon Musk here and wanting to essentially populate Mars and criticize him, you're ignoring, again, from the liberal standpoint and their concern on climate change, the rise of Tesla. Say what you will about whether it's an efficient business. The marketing of Tesla has been so far, I think, fairly successful. Tesla has become more of a household word in the last several years, as opposed to where it was, early on. Not that, again, I agree with pouring public money in such a venture, but if Prince William, I guess, is looking at that, are you saying that his Elon Musk's success in terms of leading a company, creating a company that has brought about I would say, again, commercially, whether it's successful or not, marketing-wise, it is a success of Tesla. You're ignoring that completely. And I don't know. You and I have always said we can walk and chew gum at the same time. I'm not one to step out in front of liberal billionaires and their plan and their mission. I'm not one to just jump on board for championing something, but the idea that how dare these billionaires go to space? They should be focusing on Earth with their money is where I have to draw the line. And I don't care who the billionaire is. And I don't care what their mission statement is. It's their money. I don't have any say-so, again, with the exception of public money that goes into any projects along the way, and there has been some.
But I think one of the best points is the fact that Prince William's talking about all the liberal things that should be done, all the things that they're talking about at the UN, and what is the one thing that all the climate change people were against, which is the one thing that reduced the amount of global warming gases into the atmosphere the most?
Fracking.
Hydraulic fracking, horizontal fracking. That's
Natural
why
gas.
That's why the United States was able to. Other countries weren't able to meet. We belong to the Paris Accord, the Kyoto Protocol, the Climate Change Delusional Club, and
the Alberta Club.
Did any of you reach your goals? No. Did you come close to reaching your goals? No. What country did better than all of you that wasn't a part of all these agreements, that didn't sit there and say, massive government bureaucracy doing the wrong thing is the solution to a problem that we're not even sure if it exists or how serious it is? Well, if you're worried about the global warming gases, fracking is why the United States led the world in the reduction of global warming gases. And government wasn't involved in that at all. So when you see something that is that big, and it's not the only thing. Remember, you and I, when the Democrats were in power and Bush signed the ethanol mandates, and we said they're going to find out does the opposite. By March of the next year of 2000, it was 2006 he signed, or no, 2007, because it was beginning of 2008, March of 2008. In that year, in that election year, where the environmentalists went, oops, we made a mistake. Producing ethanol actually doesn't save the planet. It puts more global warming gases into the atmosphere. We're doing the wrong thing, and we had said it for the longest time. Why? Because we're not idiots, and we know a little bit about science. And so it's still going on today. We're still subsidizing ethanol to pretend that it's cleaning up the planet, and everybody knows it doesn't. And Al Gore had finally admit back in 2011.
That was 2010?
2011, that he lied about it. Mm-hmm. He lied about it. For decades, he lied about it in order to get people to do something that actually did the opposite of what was intended. So you've got that, and you've got the fracking. Well, when you have these huge issues where they're completely wrong, when they're wrong in all of their predictions, and we're supposed to sit there and just have blind belief in what they're telling us each and every day, it doesn't work that way. No. 866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. Another poll that makes you go, coming up following the top of the hour. Also, TSA says 40% of their workforce is unvaxxed. I'm thinking, well, the holiday travel season is coming up, and you've got 40% that is not? What do they have to say about that? Biden walks away from the mic again. I wait for it every day when I know he's going to speak. And even if I don't watch it, I know it's only going to be about 5. It's not going to be he doesn't speak for an hour. No. I think it was a 9-minute speech this time.
Right.
And it's like, and then I go to social media 10 minutes after, and I just see all the photos of him just with his back turned going the other way.
I think this is the game. It is, all right, let's do a short statement or speech, and this will allow us to say that the president is working every day,
right,
and we can ignore the fact that he's not taking questions. But you actually can't ignore that fact.
No, you can't.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.